Unfortunately, it's a formal session, so I'm going to be very, very formal. So I need introductions. We only have 5 people in the room who would care to introduce themselves. But interestingly enough, there might be a couple people. I see 5 people connected right now. So as soon as the number grows, we will go into the more formality of it and see if we can ask some questions and find out who we are talking to today. The whole idea of coming here and talking about marketing and advertising was focused on how startups can leverage 21st century marketing tools, marketing thought process, and take advantage from it. So thanks for NIC Karachi for inviting me over on that one. The most interesting thing that I saw today was reduction in traffic on the roads coming over to NIC. So that is basically because of the biggest disruption this world has seen, which is COVID. So people are going about their businesses like we are today online. People are more comfortable talking on Zoom, Google Meet, or any one of the video conferencing tools. And also at the same time, trying to conduct new business activities through this outreach. Initially, Pakistani businesses thought you had to travel abroad or you had to know people abroad before you could conduct business. Now, the global field is your playing field. So everything is in your backyard. It depends on how you adopt technology. Having said that, a lot of people have started using technology to disrupt business spaces. Now, what do we call disruption? So I'll ask a few questions around here with people around the table. But if you have anything, please feel free to put it on the chat and we'll see when we can get to that. So while we were doing introductions informally before this thing started, so people were talking about affiliate marketing, about legal matters, about education, and chatbots, right? Okay. Now all these things have been in play for a very long time. How do we call them in place? So one of the biggest disruptions we've seen in Pakistan was Kareem, right? Do we agree on that?
Yes.
Right. But how about if I take you back to the 60s in New York City and radio cabs? Essentially the same thing, right? So they use technology to disrupt it. So repackage the entire thing and say, hey, you can use an app to call a cab. And that's pretty much it, right? Now the app and the technology allows you to calculate distances and do a whole bunch of things and you can estimate how it's more ergonomic in design. So it doesn't slip out of your hand in the shower. Right? But interestingly enough, how many people in Pakistan have showers? So with 250 million population in this country, how much have we disrupted? So how many people actually use Kareem? How many people have bank accounts? So one thing that disrupted the process itself was mobile wallets. Right? Because banks were not able to get people to open more accounts. Then something new happened, so people use technology. The legislation was drafted to make sure that electronic money has value. Then you can transfer funds.
The need was there.
The need was there.
It wasn't being met.
Yeah. So mobile wallets are more popular in our part of the world than the rest of the world, right? Because all you're doing over there is programming your credit card and making it easier for you to use. So contactless credit cards are there, right? So now we're beginning to get them. But how do you integrate them with an NFC device? But that's also a question that people are asking, right? So who will disrupt the space? Somebody will come along and say, hey, this is how you do things. So age-old folktale about the emperor's new clothes, I'm pretty sure everybody's read it. So how can you dress the emperor to look different? Now, if you're going down to the bare bones, essentially everything already exists. What new stuff has come along? The money was there, so bank wallets are a new way of accessing money, right? Cryptocurrency, is that disruption? No, not really. It is an offshore hidden bank account in a Swiss bank, right? Which nobody can know about. Over there, you would go take your gold bullion or dollars for that matter, store them in a vault, have access to it. So it can be mined. So what's the concept of money? The concept of money was how much production and economy does, and that's the value of the currency, right? Very basic, bare bone principle. So do not forget your principle because there's innovation involved. You need to figure out how You will use that basic information to develop new packaging, a new way of using stuff. Right? Marketing teaches us almost that much, right? It says, look, this is what we are going to do to take over and ambitions for everybody in a global domination, right? So every incubatee today believes that they have struck gold. This is the best thing that can happen to the world. But in the old form of marketing, we used to call that perceptual mapping. It's a stretch, but it's essentially the same, right? So this is what I think about my product, which the consumer thinks about it, right? So it is my perception being superimposed on consumers saying, hey, this is how I'm going to do things. And most people get trapped on that. So what you need to figure out is how do you get out or steer clear of that trap and see what do people really want, right? So what do they want? They want convenience, right? They want entertainment. What else do they want? A couple of more things we can't talk about over here in public forums, right? But this is the basics that people need, right? And if somebody is fulfilling that need in one way or the other, whether it is through an app, whether it is through regular means, but it's been done, right? So if you build a layer on top of your idea, then you're doing something. So this news about Amazon coming to Pakistan, how did that change things? Right? Everybody was talking about it. Look, Amazon's coming to Pakistan. Nobody had any idea that Amazon's not coming to Pakistan. Yeah. They are doing things differently, enabling Pakistani vendors to sell on Amazon, right? Yeah. And from top to bottom, everybody was saying Amazon's coming to Pakistan. Yeah. Okay. For all practical purposes, Amazon was shipping to Pakistan, right? So people found ways of being middlemen for stuff being delivered to where it can be delivered by Amazon, and then people picking it up and bringing it to Pakistan. Through an app, through a website. What do we call it in layman's term? No.
Delivery.
No.
Intermediation.
No, sir. KP.
Yeah, KP.
Right? That's what it is.
Yeah, right. KP. Right.
So developing an alternate channel, or an ABC as banks love to call it, and disrupting the entire system. So disruption, negative, again, avoiding taxation, import duties and stuff like that. But again, it developed a channel. What else have we done this for? Wala Mandi is pretty much the same. Going on since the days of the Templars, right? So we haven't perfected the system. Banking did it for us. Cryptocurrency is the key. It's the same thing. They suddenly say you have this much wealth, fine. And then people are speculating that is what's causing the price changes, right? So come down to the bare bones and look at the four P's of marketing. And look at packaging, pricing, basic promotion. So when we talk about communicating in the 21st century, we are talking about using today's technology to do it. Radio took a long time to catch on. TV took a shorter time to catch on. Facebook took 4 years to catch on and get to that level where TV and radio had caught on in decades. Right? So how do we do things differently? Do we do things differently? We shoot a TV commercial and we put it on YouTube, we put it on Facebook, we put it in different mediums, right? How does that happen? There's no innovation or disruption there. Right? But then there are brands that are made because of this. So what digital has done is given access to smaller brands to come to mainstream media, right? So how many people use digital in this country? Any idea? How many people use digital in this country, right? 100 million, roughly, give or take, 84 million connections according to PTA, right? 81 million of them are on mobile devices. So NIC probably has, 5 internet hardwired connections? The campus you're sitting on, maybe another 10. So that's also counting all those connections of 3 million connections. So understand that everything's mobile. So 20 years ago, I was having a conversation, wrote a paper on this. It was about m-commerce, not e-commerce. And everybody was questioning, hey, e-commerce needs to come in. So we are not in a linear world anymore. We jumped technology barrier because a laptop was more expensive than a mobile phone or a smartphone. As the cost of data reduced, as the cost of devices reduced, people started jumping on that and skipped that. So this is the same thing now. This is the same thing that has happened in the milk industry. You know how? So there's raw milk, there's pasteurized milk, there's UHT milk. So instead of pasteurized, because we did not have supporting infrastructure for pasteurized milk, you don't have a cold chain. So we jumped from raw milk over to UHT milk, right? And now we are going back to pasteurized because the world actually says it's much better than having UHT milk. Whatever the reason, we'll not get into those, but at the same time, look at how systems jump, right? This is happening more frequently now, and it's more common because of digital technology. Smaller brands have become big. Bigger brands are still struggling with the concept of digital advertising. They're using it as another channel. It is not a channel. It's a medium, an ecosystem by itself, with 100 million people on digital media. Okay. We used to ask the question in advertising world, how many people watch TV versus digital? So 10 years ago, there were less than 10 million people on digital in this country. Right now, 100 million people have access to digital media, and television was 100 million, has been 100 million. Okay. Now, I fail to understand how many households do we cater to where 100 million people watch TV. Right. In villages, even now, we say communal watching of television, right? But where are those devices? They are individual, right? Each home is an individual device. So you have one-on-one access to that person. Then you take it on to the next one and you start talking about how can you use that one-on-one access to start communicating. So half your packaging job is already done. It's right there. In front of your eyes to see, use, and think around it as well. So a lot of brands which started on digital now have gone on to mainstream media. And why have they gone? Because they think if we will not be seen on mainstream media, the rest of the people will not catch on. Now what they're forgetting is that those rest of the people are actually there or not. So 250 million population, average size of a household is 6. Okay, 20.1, right? It can be actually in a country like Pakistan. So with 6, see, totally PG.
Well done.
Okay. 6
Thank you, I appreciate that.
people. So how many households are we talking about? About 35 million, give or take a million. So how many television sets do we have? 35 million? I have 3. How many do you have? Do you have TV sets? I'm not asking whether you watch them anymore or not, but you do have TV sets, right? So if people around this table have multiple TVs in their homes, how many TVs are actually out there? Do we know that? We have zero information on that. So if economic survey and demographic surveys and census data is to be trusted, how many television sets do we have? So if we talk about Karachi, do you know how much TV license fee is collected from this country? No idea? Do you know how it's collected? No idea. Through the electricity bill. So every electricity connection has an X amount of money attached to it as TV license fee. Right? So in the old days, you had to go to the post office, get a TV license done, and that's it. You had to have a radio license as well. Right?
You're giving away our age, Faisal.
Okay.
These guys
So
don't know what the post
Umar
office
used to walk into the post office and get that.
These guys don't even know what a post office is. You're talking about a license from a post office.
So okay, let's talk about weapons licenses, right? So you still have to go to the post office to do it, right? So the thing is, things have changed drastically, right? But how many TV sets can there be in Karachi? So what we know is they can be equal to, more than or less than the number of AE connections there are. So let's reduce the commercial connections from there. The chances are there are no television sets over there. Chances. But then I come in, or you come in and say, change that figure because we have more than one. Right? So how do we figure this out? So you actually physically have to go there and find out how many TV sets and each household has. So 35 million times X is the number of TV sets, right? PTA tells us how many mobile devices are there. It tells us how many SIM connections are there. It tells us how many internet connections, so 3G, 4G, access to technology is all covered by. So what is a more informed decision? So we need to start thinking digital first. Okay. So this is solid information. Now let's talk about somewhat shaky information and start talking to people who will maybe give us incremental reach. So if you're advertising on digital, let's say on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, so you've covered the majority of your performance, right? Then you start talking about, let's say we go on TV. On TV, what channels do we go on? Which are most watched? May not be the right decision because the most popular TV channels have a demographic information, and that demographic information overlaid onto digital information suggests that the person who's watching that popular channel is also on digital. So since it's cheaper to reach those people on digital, why bother going on popular channels? Right? Then you start talking about channels that will give you incremental reach at minimum cost. So in digital, we borrow terms from print media. Print media also used to loan their terms to